Sometimes God answers prayers by saying no. That closed door wasn't loss. It was mercy that will soon be obvious. Chosen one, take a breath. Slow your spirit for just a moment, because this message didn't appear in your feed by accident. You didn't stumble into this. Heaven aligned this exact second, this exact pause in your life, because something in you has been asking questions you haven't said out loud. Late at night, in the quiet, in the ache you carry with a brave face, and God saw it all, there's been a door you pleaded for. You knocked with faith, you fasted, you cried, you imagined your future on the other side of it, and when it closed, suddenly, firmly, without explanation, it felt like rejection, like delay, like silence. But chosen one, what if that closure wasn't punishment, but protection? What if God stepped in at the exact moment you couldn't see the danger hiding behind what you desired? You've been walking through a season of confusion, sensing you're called for more, yet feeling blocked at every turn. You survived battles no one knows about. You smiled while bleeding internally. You kept believing even when signs seemed to disappear. And that's why this hurts the way it does, because you weren't being casual with God. You were sincere. You were all in. So when that door shut, it shook you. But listen closely. Heaven does not close doors randomly. God doesn't remove things without already arranging what comes next. That door closed because it was tied to a version of your future that would have slowly dimmed your light. You were being investigated by heaven, refined in the shadows, prepared for a timing you couldn't rush without harm. And chosen one, before we go deeper, pause for a moment, hit subscribe, and comment, "I received this," if your spirit is already responding. Because this message is about to speak directly to you. Not to the crowd, to you. What felt like loss was actually alignment. What felt like delay was divine choreography. God saw what you couldn't see. He heard conversations you weren't in. He blocked paths that looked good but would have cost you peace, purpose, or calling. And now, standing here, watching this, you're closer than you realize to understanding why. Stay with me, because the reason that door closed is about to make sense. Chosen one, let's return to that exact moment. The moment everything stopped. Not gradually, not with warning signs stretched over months, but suddenly, one conversation, one message, one decision, one closed door. And you're still replaying it, asking yourself why God didn't let it fade slowly, why He didn't give you more time to adjust, more room to prepare your heart. But what if the suddenness was the mercy? There are moments when God doesn't negotiate with delay. When He sees that your heart is too faithful, too hopeful, too committed to walk away on its own. You would have stayed longer. You would have endured more confusion. You would have kept praying for something He already knew was draining your future. So instead of asking you to let go, He stepped in and said, "Enough." Not in anger, in love. Sudden endings feel violent to the soul because they interrupt attachment. They shock the nervous system. They leave you staring at what used to be familiar, wondering how it disappeared so fast. But chosen one, divine interruptions are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of divine authority. God doesn't slowly close doors that will cost you your calling. He closes them firmly so you don't turn back. Think about it. If the door had stayed halfway open, wouldn't you have kept peeking inside? Wouldn't you have kept wondering, maybe later, maybe if I try again, maybe if I change something? God knows your loyalty. He knows how deeply you love, how seriously you commit, how long you're willing to wait. And that is exactly why He acted quickly, because your strength would have become your trap. This wasn't God taking something from you. This was God removing something that was quietly taking from you. Your peace, your clarity, your spiritual sensitivity, your time. Sometimes heaven interrupts before you fully realize how tired you've become. Have you noticed how exhausted you were right before it ended? How much explaining you were doing? How often you were asking God for reassurance instead of resting in Him? Ask yourself gently, without judgment, were you staying because it was right or because you were loyal? Were you holding on because God was still in it, or because you didn't want to accept that a season had expired? God answers those questions for us when we can't answer them ourselves. This is why it happened all at once. Not to hurt you, but to free you. Not to confuse you, but to protect what's ahead. When God whispers enough, it's because he sees what another step would cost you. And chosen one, you are too valuable to lose pieces of yourself in places that no longer align with where you're being called. Let this settle in your spirit. What if the sudden ending was the first moment of your rescue? What if the shock was actually the sound of chains breaking? Stay with me, because once you understand why God intervenes so quickly, you'll never see that closed door the same way again. Chosen one, there are futures God never shows you, on purpose. Not because he is hiding blessings, but because revealing them too early would break your heart in ways you are not meant to carry. The door you wanted so badly looked promising from where you stood. It looked like growth, stability, maybe even destiny. And from the outside, it made sense. But what you could not see was what that future would have quietly required from you. Behind that door were compromises no one would have noticed at first. Small adjustments, tiny silences, moments where you would have had to explain yourself away, soften your convictions, delay your obedience just a little longer. Not all danger is loud, chosen one. Some of it whispers, some of it drains instead of destroys. And God knew that over time, those unseen compromises would have slowly dimmed the fire he placed inside you. You were about to enter a season that looked productive, but would have been painfully delayed. Progress without fulfillment, motion without alignment. You would have been busy, but not advancing. Active, but not anointed. And the most dangerous thing is not moving backward, it's staying occupied in a place where your calling begins to suffocate quietly. Have you ever felt tired even when nothing looked wrong? That was your spirit sensing what your eyes couldn't yet see. God also saw the emotional cost, the weight you would have carried trying to hold things together, the inner negotiations you would have made just to keep peace, the way your joy would have become conditional, dependent on outcomes instead of rooted in truth. Chosen one, you were about to become strong in the wrong direction, and strength misaligned is still loss. So God covered you. He didn't expose the danger, because that would have tempted you to believe you could manage it. He didn't reveal every detail because you might have tried to fix what was never yours to carry. Instead, he closed the door quietly, firmly, and without explanation. That wasn't silence. It was shelter. Protection doesn't always come with clarity. Sometimes it comes with grief, confusion, and unanswered questions. But look back honestly. Had God shown you everything you were being spared from, would you have still trusted him? Or would fear have overtaken your faith? God knew your heart. He chose peace over proof. Ask yourself now with gentleness, what parts of you would have had to shrink to stay there? What dreams would have been postponed indefinitely? What version of yourself would have survived but not thrived? God didn't save you from something obvious. He saved you from something subtle. And one day soon, chosen one, you will look back and realize the future you imagined was smaller than the one God is preparing. The door didn't close because you weren't ready. It closed because you were meant for more. Stay close. Because next we're going to talk about how what felt like rejection was actually heaven's covering over your life. Chosen one, let's talk about rejection. The kind that didn't just disappoint you, but shook your sense of worth. The kind that made you question whether you misunderstood God, whether you imagined the calling, whether you were ever truly seen. It felt like being pushed out, dismissed, overlooked, or replaced. And yet, what if heaven was not rejecting you, but hiding you? There are seasons when God removes access, not because you are unqualified, but because you are too valuable to be mishandled. Rejection is often misunderstood because we measure it by human standards: approval, validation, inclusion. But God measures by preservation. When something or someone suddenly no longer has access to you, it may feel humiliating on the surface. But spiritually, it is often a covering being pulled over your life. Think about it. If you had stayed visible in that space, exposed to those expectations, those misunderstandings, those subtle pressures to become someone else, what would it have done to your identity? Chosen one, Destiny cannot survive in environments that constantly question its legitimacy. God will remove you before you start shrinking to be accepted. What hurt the most was not losing the place. It was losing the sense of belonging. You gave your heart. You showed up authentically. You tried to be faithful, and still you were sidelined. But hear this gently. Not every place that welcomes you is safe for you, and not every place that rejects you is against you. Some doors close because heaven refuses to let you be familiar where you are meant to be honored later. God sometimes hides his chosen ones the way a craftsman hides a masterpiece mid-process, not to discard it, but to protect it from premature judgment. You were being shaped, refined, aligned, and exposure at the wrong time would have distorted the work. Rejection became the shield that kept you from being defined by opinions that could never see the full picture. Ask yourself, what version of you was being demanded there? Who were you slowly becoming to survive in that space? God saw the erosion beginning before you did, so he stepped in, not loudly, not dramatically, but decisively. He allowed the separation so you could hear your own voice again, so you could remember who you are without interference. This is why it felt confusing. Protection rarely feels gentle in the moment. It feels like loss before it feels like safety. But chosen one, heaven never removes you without intention. You weren't rejected. You were reserved. You weren't pushed aside. You were pulled closer to God. You weren't excluded. You were being repositioned. Let this question settle in your spirit. What if the very thing that wounded your pride saved your purpose? What if being unseen for a season is exactly what will allow you to be revealed without compromise later? Stay with me, because next we're going to talk about the peace that begins to rise once obedience replaces resistance, and how your soul already knows you're on the right path. Chosen one, surrender is rarely loud. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or instant relief. Most of the time, it enters quietly, almost unnoticed, after the struggle has exhausted you, after the arguing with God, after the bargaining, after you finally stop trying to make something work that heaven has already released. Obedience in the beginning doesn't feel powerful. It feels like loss, like silence, like standing still while everything in you wants to move. At first, surrender feels like weakness because your flesh was attached. Your emotions were invested. Your plans were intertwined with what God asked you to lay down. And when you obeyed, when you stepped back, when you stopped reaching, when you let go, it didn't feel victorious. It felt empty. But chosen one, emptiness is not always absence. Sometimes it's space, space for peace to enter. Have you noticed how, after the initial ache, something inside you began to soften? Not happiness, not excitement, but a gentle quiet, a settling, a sense that, even though it hurt, you no longer had to fight yourself? That is the first sign of alignment. When the war between what you want and what God wants finally ends, peace doesn't rush in, it seeps in. Obedience doesn't thrill the ego, it calms the soul. And your soul knows when it has chosen God over comfort, even when your mind is still catching up. That's why the peace feels different from relief. Relief is circumstantial. Peace is spiritual. Peace stays even when answers don't come immediately. Peace doesn't explain itself. It reassures you without words. Letting go realigns you internally. Your thoughts slow down. Your prayers change. You stop asking God to fix what He already removed, and you start asking Him to shape what's next. The noise fades. The constant replays stop. And in that quiet, you begin to hear God again, not correcting you, not warning you, but comforting you. Chosen one, this peace is not accidental. It is confirmation. It's heaven's way of saying, you chose right, even though it cost you, even though you cried after obeying, even though part of you still misses what was familiar. Peace doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you trusted God more than your attachment. Ask yourself, why does your spirit feel lighter even though nothing external has changed yet? Why do you feel less anxious even without clear answers? Why do you sleep a little deeper, breathe a little easier, pray a little softer? That is the reward of surrender. Not blessing yet, but alignment. And alignment always comes before acceleration. This quiet peace is preparing you. It is stabilizing you for what's ahead. God settles you before He moves you. He anchors you before He elevates you. And chosen one, if peace has found you after obedience, that means you are exactly where you need to be. Stay here with me, because next we're going to talk about the new door forming in the unseen, and how, while you think nothing is happening, heaven is already building something that fits who you've become. Chosen one of the hardest truths to accept is this: just because you can't see movement doesn't mean heaven is still. Silence is not inactivity. Waiting is not abandonment. While you've been wondering if anything is happening at all, God has been working in places your eyes were never meant to reach. The new door doesn't appear suddenly. It forms quietly, piece by piece in the unseen. God never rushes what must sustain you. The doors He builds are not quick exits or temporary solutions. They are structures, strong enough to hold the weight of who you're becoming, and that kind of door can't be rushed. It has to be aligned with your healing, your maturity, your discernment. That's why it feels slow. Heaven is not stalling, it is synchronizing. Right now you're in a season where it feels like life has paused. Fewer signs, fewer confirmations, fewer emotional highs. But this is the stage where foundations are laid. God often begins building the next door while you are still grieving the last one, while you're regaining strength, while your heart is learning how to trust without clinging. Have you noticed how your desires are changing? How what once excited you no longer satisfies you? That's not boredom, it's preparation. Chosen one, divine doors are designed to fit the version of you that emerges after surrender, not before it. If God opened it too soon, you would walk in carrying wounds that don't belong in the next season. So He waits, not to test your patience, but to protect your future. Healing is not a delay, it is part of the construction. You may feel overlooked right now, unmoving, like you're standing in between chapters with nothing to hold on to. But heaven specializes in invisible progress. Conversations are happening you're not invited into yet. Alignments are shifting, people are being repositioned, circumstances are quietly rearranging themselves to make room for you. And when the door finally appears, it will feel natural, almost obvious, because everything will line up without force. Ask yourself this: what if the stillness you're in is actually the safest place you've been in years? What if God removed the noise so you could heal without pressure, without expectation, without performance? You are not being ignored. You are being protected during construction. And here's the gentle truth: when the door opens, it will not resemble the one that closed. It will require more of your authenticity, not less. More of your faith, not your fear. More of your calling, not your compromise. That's why God is taking His time. This door must honor who you are now. Stay attentive, chosen one. Stay soft. Stay faithful in the quiet. Because while you think nothing is happening, heaven is building something that will make sense of every closed door behind you. And next, we'll talk about how to trust this process fully, without needing to see every step, so you can rest while God finishes the work He has already begun. Chosen one, this is the lesson that comes last. Not because it is least important, but because it is the hardest to learn. Resting while God works sounds beautiful in theory, yet uncomfortable in practice. Your instinct has always been to watch closely, to analyze every sign, to look for proof that you're still on the right path. But faith matures when it no longer needs constant reassurance to survive. There was a time when signs were necessary because you were learning to trust God's voice. But now God is teaching you something deeper: how to trust His nature. To believe that even when the sky is quiet, heaven is not empty. To know that even when nothing is visible, nothing is wasted. Rest is not passivity, it is confidence. Releasing control feels like stepping into darkness without a map. Your mind wants timelines, your heart wants guarantees, your spirit wants clarity. But chosen one, control is often a substitute for trust, and God gently removes it when He's inviting you into a higher known, faith that doesn't panic when it can't see the next step. Have you noticed how exhausted you were when you tried to manage outcomes? How your prayers were full of urgency instead of intimacy? How your thoughts never rested, even when you said you trusted God. Rest begins when you stop asking, "Is God working?" and start declaring, "God is faithful." This is where chosen ones separate from the crowd. Many believe when doors open. Few believe when doors close and nothing replaces them immediately. But this is the sacred space where your faith grows roots instead of leaves. Roots don't need applause. They grow quietly, underground, unseen, yet they determine everything that comes next. God never closes a door without already holding the key to something greater. But greater doesn't always mean louder. Sometimes it means safer, deeper, more aligned. And until that door opens, your assignment is not to strive, it is to rest, to live fully present, to love without fear, to serve without pressure, to heal without rushing. Ask yourself this gently. What would it look like to trust God even if today looks exactly like yesterday? Can you still worship without progress reports? Can you still obey without explanations? Can you still rest without knowing the timeline? This is not weakness, it is spiritual strength refined. Resting while God works tells heaven, "I know who you are." It says, "I don't need to chase what you've already assigned." It says, "I believe you more than my anxiety." And chosen one, that kind of faith moves things faster than effort ever could. So breathe. Release the need to monitor every detail. Let God surprise you. Let him finish what he started without interference. The door he closed was necessary. The door he is opening will be worth it. And until it appears, your peace is proof that you are exactly where you're meant to be. Stay resting, stay trusting, because what God is bringing does not require your exhaustion, only your faith.